When I moved into my dream lakefront home, I thought I'd found paradise, until the HOA president, Karen, decided my prime shoreline belonged to her cousin. What she didn't expect was the fence I built, a move so bold it left the entire neighborhood stunned and redefined who controlled my property. I had always dreamed of owning a lakefront home. After years of saving, I finally found the perfect place in Lakeview Estates, a quiet community with sprawling lawns and a shimmering lake that reflected the sunset like a painting. The property wasn't just a house, it was a sanctuary, with a backyard that sloped gently down to a private stretch of shoreline. That lakefront was the reason I bought the place. It was where I planned to sip coffee in the mornings, host barbecues with friends, and maybe even teach my future kids to fish. The deed was clear. The lakefront, up to the water's edge, was mine. Or so I thought. The trouble started about a month after I moved in. I was still unpacking boxes when I noticed a woman standing at the edge of my backyard, staring out at the lake. She was in her late 50s, with a perm so tight it looked like it was holding her scalp hostage. She wore a bright pink tracksuit and carried a clipboard, which she clutched like it was a badge of authority. I stepped outside to introduce myself, thinking she might be a neighbor curious about the new guy. "Hi there," I called out, offering a wave. "I'm the new owner. Just moved in." She turned slowly, her eyes narrowing as she sized me up. "I'm Karen," she said, her voice clipped. "President of the Lakeview Estates Homeowners Association. I was just inspecting the property line." I nodded, a little confused. "Oh, okay. Everything all right?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she scribbled something on her clipboard and pointed toward the lake. "That shoreline," she said, "it's not entirely yours. The HOA has jurisdiction over common areas, and we're reevaluating boundaries." I frowned. "The deed says the lakefront is part of my property. I had it surveyed before I bought." Karen gave me a tight smile, the kind that didn't reach her eyes. "Deeds can be misinterpreted. I'll send you the HOA bylaws. You'll need to familiarize yourself with them." And with that, she turned and walked away, her sneakers squeaking on the grass. I didn't think much of it at first. I figured she was just flexing her authority, maybe trying to scare the new guy into compliance. I'd heard stories about HOAs being overly controlling, but I wasn't worried. My paperwork was solid, and I had no intention of letting anyone mess with my property. Still, I dug out the HOA bylaws that night and read through them. They were dense, filled with jargon about easements and common areas, but nothing suggested my lakefront was anything other than mine. A week later, I came home from work to find a stranger setting up a picnic table on my shoreline. He was a burly guy in his 40s, unloading lawn chairs and a cooler from the back of a pickup truck parked in my driveway. I pulled in behind him and got out, trying to keep my cool. "Excuse me," I said. "Can I help you?" He looked up, wiping sweat from his brow. "Oh, hey. You must be the neighbor. I'm Dave, Karen's cousin. She said this spot's mine now." I blinked, certain I'd misheard. "Your spot? This is my property." Dave shrugged, like it was no big deal. Karen said the HOA redrew the lines. "This part of the lakefront's mine. I'm building a dock next week." I felt my pulse quicken. Karen can't just give away my land. "I own this." Dave held up his hands, clearly not interested in a fight. "Look, man, I'm just going by what she told me. Take it up with her." I stormed back inside and called Karen. She picked up on the third ring, her voice dripping with fake cheer. "Hello, this is Karen, Lakeview Estates HOA president." "Karen, what's going on?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "There's a guy on my lakefront saying you gave it to him." "Oh, you must mean Dave," she said, as if we were discussing the weather. "Yes, the HOA board reviewed the property lines, and we determined that your shoreline is part of the common area. Dave's leasing it from the HOA now." "That's not possible," I said. "My deed." "Your deed is outdated," she interrupted. "The HOA has the authority to adjust boundaries for the benefit of the community. You'll receive a formal notice soon." I was stunned. "You can't do this. I'll fight it." Karen sighed, like I was being difficult. "You're welcome to appeal at the next board meeting. But I should warn you, the board rarely overturns decisions. Good day." She hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. My dream home, the lakefront I'd paid for, was being stolen out from under me. I wasn't just angry, I was livid. But I knew I had to stay calm and figure out my next move. The first thing I did was call my real estate lawyer, Sarah. She'd helped me with the closing and knew the property inside out. I explained everything, and she agreed to look into it. "Send me your deed, the survey, and any HOA documents you have," she said. This sounds like a gross overreach. HOAs can't just rewrite property lines without due process. While Sarah worked on the legal side, I decided to attend the next HOA board meeting. It was held in the community clubhouse, a stuffy room with fluorescent lights and folding chairs. Karen sat at the head of a long table, flanked by 4 other board members who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. About a dozen homeowners were in attendance, most of them older folks who nodded along to everything Karen said. When it was my turn to speak, I stood up and laid out my case. I showed copies of my deed and survey, explaining that the lakefront was clearly mine. I pointed out that Karen's decision to give it to her cousin was a conflict of interest. A few people in the room murmured, but Karen didn't flinch. "Thank you for your input," she said, her voice icy. "The board has already reviewed the matter. The shoreline is a common area, and Dave's lease is valid. Next item." I was floored. They didn't even discuss it. I tried to push back, but Karen banged her gavel and moved on. As I left the meeting, I overheard one of the board members whisper to another, "Karen's got this locked down." Over the next few weeks, things got worse. Dave started treating the lakefront like his personal resort. He built a dock, parked his boat there, and hosted loud parties that went on late into the night. My backyard, once a peaceful retreat, was now a constant source of noise and frustration. I couldn't even mow my lawn without dodging his coolers and chairs. Sarah called me with an update. "I've reviewed everything," she said. "Your deed is rock solid. The HOA's claim doesn't hold up. They're relying on a vague clause in the bylaws, but it's not enforceable without a proper survey and court approval. I'm drafting a cease and desist letter, and if they don't back off, we'll sue." The letter went out, but Karen ignored it. Instead, she sent me a notice claiming I owed a $500 assessment for the upkeep of the common area, my own lakefront. That was the last straw. I wasn't just going to roll over and let her bully me. If Karen wanted a fight, she was going to get one. I started researching my options. I talked to other homeowners, and it turned out I wasn't the only one fed up with Karen. She'd been running the HOA like her personal kingdom for years, fining people for minor infractions and making arbitrary decisions. A few neighbors told me she'd pulled similar stunts, like giving her friends special privileges or punishing anyone who challenged her. But no one had ever fought back hard enough to stop her. That's when I got the idea for the fence. I wasn't going to wait for the courts or the HOA to come to their senses. I needed to take back my property in a way that Karen couldn't ignore. I called a fencing contractor, Jim, who'd done work for a friend of mine. I explained the situation, and he agreed to meet me at the property. Jim walked the shoreline with me, taking measurements. "You sure about this?" he asked. "HOAs can get nasty about fences." "I'm sure," I said. "I want to play games with my property, I'll show them." We designed a plan. The fence would run along the exact property line, as confirmed by my survey, cutting off Dave's dock and picnic area from my lakefront. It would be 6 feet tall, made of solid cedar for privacy and durability, with a lockable gate for access. But I wanted to go further. I told Jim to add a twist, something that would catch everyone's attention. "How about we paint it?" I said. "Something bold." Jim grinned. "What color?" "Not just color," I said. "A design. Something that'll make Karen lose her mind." We settled on a mural. I hired a local artist to paint a stunning lakeside scene on the side of the fence facing the water. It was a beautiful scene, with crystal-clear water, lush trees, and a vibrant sunrise. But hidden in the details were subtle digs at Karen, a tiny pink clipboard floating in the reeds, a cartoonish figure in a tracksuit looking frustrated on the shore. It was tasteful enough to avoid legal trouble but pointed enough to send a message. The fence went up in a week. Jim's crew worked fast, and I made sure every permit was in order. The day it was finished, I stood in my backyard, admiring the work. The cedar panels gleamed, and the mural was even better than I'd imagined. The gate locked with a satisfying click, and for the first time in months, my lakefront was mine again. The reaction was immediate. Dave showed up that afternoon, pounding on my gate. "What is this?" he yelled. "You can't block my dock." "It's my property," I said through the fence. "Your dock's on my land. Move it." He stormed off, and I knew he'd go straight to Karen. Sure enough, she called me an hour later, practically shrieking. "You've defaced HOA property," she said. "Take that monstrosity down immediately." "It's on my land," I said calmly. "Check the survey. You have no jurisdiction." Karen didn't back down. She sent me a flurry of violation notices, claiming the fence was unapproved and the mural was offensive. I ignored them and forwarded everything to Sarah. Meanwhile, the neighborhood started buzzing. People drove by to see the fence, and word of the mural spread like wildfire. Some thought it was hilarious. Others thought I'd gone too far. But everyone was talking about it. A few neighbors even started pushing back against Karen. At the next HOA meeting, several homeowners raised concerns about her leadership. They questioned the decision to give my lakefront to Dave and demanded an independent review of the HOA's actions. Karen tried to shut it down, but the tide was turning. Sarah's legal efforts paid off, too. She filed a lawsuit against the HOA and Karen personally, alleging fraud and abuse of power. The court ordered a temporary injunction, forcing Dave to remove his dock and vacate my shoreline. Karen's lawyers tried to argue, but they didn't have a leg to stand on. The judge was particularly unimpressed by my survey and the HOA's lack of evidence. In the end, that Karen overplayed her hand. The lawsuit uncovered years of mismanagement in the HOA, from inflated contracts to questionable financial decisions. The board forced her to resign, and a new leadership took over. The new HOA president apologized to me personally and confirmed that my lakefront was mine, no strings attached. The fence stayed. It's still there today, a symbol of my refusal to let a bully take what was mine. The mural's still a hit. Neighbors even stop by to take photos with it. Dave moved his boat to a public dock down the road, and I haven't seen